In the final years of his long and glorious reign, the first Roman emperor, Augustus, was said to wander the halls of his palace in a state of despair, periodically banging his head against the wall and crying out a single anguished plea: "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." What could reduce the master of the known world to such a state? It was the news of a disaster so total, so shocking, that it would haunt the Roman psyche for centuries. In the autumn of 9 AD, three of Rome's finest legions, an entire army of nearly 20,000 soldiers, along with their followers and sacred eagle standards, marched into the dark, dense forests of Germania and vanished from the face of the earth. This was not a battle fought on an open field. It was a meticulously planned, multi-day ambush. It is a story of misplaced trust, cunning betrayal, and the complete annihilation of a Roman army. This is the story of the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, the defeat that halted the relentless march of the Roman war machine and forever defined the northern frontier of its empire. By 9 AD, the Roman Empire was at the zenith of its power. Under Emperor Augustus, its borders had expanded, and its legions were considered invincible. The next great prize was Germania Magna, the vast, untamed lands east of the Rhine River. For years, Roman legions had campaigned there, and the process of turning it into a peaceful, tax-paying Roman province was well underway. The man tasked with overseeing this final transition was the new governor, Publius Quintilius Varus. Varus was an experienced administrator, but he was not a frontier general. He treated the Germanic tribes not as proud, unconquered warriors, but as subdued subjects, imposing Roman laws and taxes with a heavy hand that bred deep resentment. In his inner circle, Varus had a trusted advisor, a young German chieftain named Arminius. Arminius was a prince of the Cherushi tribe, but he had been raised in Rome as a noble hostage. He was a Roman citizen, a knight of the equestrian order, and the commander of a unit of Germanic auxiliary cavalry in the Roman army. He spoke fluent Latin, understood Roman tactics, and had earned Varus's complete and unwavering trust, and he was using that trust to plot the governor's destruction. In secret, Arminius was forging a confederation of Germanic tribes, uniting them with a single purpose: to drive the Romans from their lands forever. As the summer of 9 AD came to a close, Varus and his three legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, were preparing to march from their summer encampment back to their winter bases along the Rhine. His army was not a lean fighting force. It was a long, slow-moving column, encumbered with heavy baggage carts and thousands of civilian camp followers. It was at this moment that Arminius sprung his trap. He arranged for Varus to receive reports of a minor rebellion in a remote tribal area. Arminius advised Varus to make a detour from the known Roman roads to crush this small uprising. Varus, confident and unsuspecting, agreed. The ancient historian Tacitus tells us that a loyal German chieftain named Segestes desperately warned Varus of the plot. He told the governor that Arminius was a traitor and begged Varus to arrest them both. Varus, in a fatal act of arrogance, dismissed the warning as nothing more than a personal feud. With his trusted advisor at his side, Varus led his legions off the familiar paths and into the dense, unfamiliar terrain of the Teutoburg Forest. After a time, Arminius and his cavalry rode away on the pretext of rallying loyal German tribes. In reality, he was riding to take command of the thousands of warriors hidden in the woods, waiting for the ambush. The terrain Arminius had chosen was a death trap. Modern archaeology at a site in Calcrease, Germany, has revealed the likely location: a narrow, muddy track squeezed between an impassable bog on one side and a steep cliff on the other side, and a wooded hill on the other. Along the crest of the hill, the Germans had constructed a long, earthen rampart hidden from view. As the miles-long Roman column became hopelessly stretched out and bogged down in the narrow defile, a sudden, torrential rainstorm began. The weather turned the ground into a quagmire, made Roman shields heavy and useless, and rendered their powerful bows ineffective. Then from all sides the attack came. A terrifying war cry echoed through the trees, and a storm of javelins rained down from the hidden rampart. Warriors surged from the woods, striking the vulnerable flank of the column. The Romans, unable to form their disciplined battle lines, were thrown into chaos. It was a slaughter. For 3 days, the survivors fought a desperate running battle. They formed a makeshift marching camp on the first night and burned their heavy wagons to speed their escape. But Arminius and his warriors gave them no rest, constantly harassing them, striking from the shadows and disappearing back into the forest. By the third day, Roman discipline had collapsed. Exhausted, terrified, and completely surrounded, the last pockets of resistance were overwhelmed. Seeing no hope, Quintilius Varus and his senior officers fell on their own swords, committing suicide to avoid the dishonor of capture. The annihilation was complete. Years later, another Roman army under the general Germanicus reached the site. Tacitus describes the gruesome scene they found: fields littered with whitening bones, shattered weapons, and the skulls of men nailed to trees. They found the crude altars where Roman tribunes and centurions had been sacrificed to German gods. The 3 sacred eagle standards of the legions were lost. When the news of the disaster finally reached Rome, it caused widespread panic. The aging Emperor Augustus was utterly devastated. The historian Suetonius tells us he took the loss so personally that he did not cut his hair or beard for months. The psychological scar on the Roman military was permanent. The numbers of the lost legions, 17, 18, and 19, were considered so unlucky that they were never used again in the history of the Roman army. The Teutoburg Forest disaster was a turning point. Augustus's successor, Tiberius, decided that the conquest of Germania Magna was too costly and too dangerous. The grand ambition of pushing the Roman frontier to the Elbe River was abandoned forever. The Rhine River became the permanent, heavily fortified border of the Roman Empire in the west for the next 400 years. Arminius, hailed as the liberator of Germania, was later assassinated by his own kinsmen, who feared his ambition. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest stands as a brutal testament to how the Roman war machine, so dominant in open battle, could be defeated by betrayal, terrain, and an enemy that refused to fight on Roman terms. It was the battle that taught Rome a bitter lesson: that even for the most powerful empire in the world, some frontiers are not meant to be crossed.